Welcome to the DragonLance Saga Gaming Advanced Dungeons & Dragons episode. This is the 9th episode in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide reading series. It is Bakukul Dark Ember the 28th, and my name is Adam. Dragonlance came out of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, so I thought it'd be fun to read the core rules aloud and discuss them with a live audience. I would like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga YouTube members and Patreon patrons, and invite you to consider becoming a member or patron. You can even grab Dragonlance Media using my affiliate links in the description below. Alright, we are picking up with non-player characters. So, let me grab my notepad and let's dive right into it. Starting by changing this. There we go. Non-player characters. Persona of non-player characters. It is often highly desirable, if not absolutely necessary, to have a well-developed non-player characters. In order to easily develop these persona, the tables below are offered for consideration. Note that the various facts and traits are given in a sequence which allows the character to develop itself, with judicial help from the DM. Thus, alignment, appearance, possessions, and the general tendencies are given. The first three will, of necessity, modify the fourth, and the latter will similarly greatly modify the other traits. The persona of special NPCs should be selected and embellished, if you wish, from the tables or see the Rogues Gallery from TSR. Side note, that is a great little supplement. Other NPCs can be developed randomly or by a combination of random and considered selection. No fewer than 3 general tendencies should be determined, and several more can be added if the DM desires. Of course, some are contradictory, and if a random selection indicates such dichotomy, roll until non-contradictory tendencies are discovered. In like manner, successively generated traits should not conflict with the general tendencies previously developed, unless the NPC is insane, in which case such conflict is quite permissible. A brief explanation of each fact and trait is given after the tables. Hey, Corey, how you doing, man? No, this is AD&D, first edition. All right, so let's look at these tables together because why not? We've got adjustments to ability dice rolls for non-player characters, the defaults given there. And then, of course, we can look at minimum score of adjusted ability dice roll based on the class, your occupation, and then some facts tables of alignment, possessions, appearance, age, general, sanity, trait tables, all sorts of stuff. And then, of course, we have the personality, D8, and then disposition, intellect, nature, materialism, honesty, bravery, energy, thrift, morals, piety. Now, look, I have played AD&D for years, and I have never once made an NPC with these random rolls. Is this something that you guys have done? Interests? Collections? He has collections of trophies and skins. Porcelain, china, and crystal. Wow. All right. Let's get into the rest of this. Facts. Alignment is preferably selected for NPCs. For encountered NPCs, the DM can select the alignment or generate it randomly as best suits the particular situation. Appearance. Age can be actual or apparent, such as means of a disguise, magic, etc. General appearance can be due to the existing circumstances or a true characteristic. Appearance will be modified by possessions. Possessions indicate the number of garments, adornments, weapons, goods, property, etc., according to the circumstances particular to the NPC in question. Actual and apparent possessions can differ greatly. The miserly individual, for example, will never display wealth. Sanity is the measure of the mental balance of the NPC against the norm. The type of insanity, or maniacal bent, is usually determined by traits rolls. Traits. General tendencies are given to guide and direct the generation of following traits in the operation of the NPC in actual play. Conflicting traits should be disregarded unless the NPC is insane. Some tendencies have 2 listings separated by a slash. The DM should either immediately select one, in the case of a predetermined NPC, or list both and select the one which better suits the NPC when the balance of other traits are determined, in cases of encountered NPCs. Yeah, the whole insane thing for conflicting traits. Human beings are nothing if not hypocritical. I feel like it's normal to have conflicting ideas or traits as an individual. And maybe that's just because I'm insane. I mean, I have to be open to that possibility. I don't think I am. But I definitely, from time to time, have wildly disparate thoughts and traits, depending on, who I'm talking to, what I'm doing, situations of life in the moment. Personality. Average indicates a typical personality type with one or more outstanding tendencies. The average personality will seldom be noticeably outstanding in any of its tendencies until the NPC is well known through dealings and association. Extroverted personalities are more readily apparent, as will be their outstanding tendencies. The extroverted NPC will be gregarious and tend toward being in positions which deal with people or power. Introverted indicates that the NPC is basically inward-looking and prefers his or her own company to that of others. Monks and hermits are two good, if not polar, examples. The encountered NPC introvert will seldom be in a people-oriented occupation or with a large party of humans. Disposition is the indicator of that general inclination of the NPC personality with regard to mood or manner. Nature describes the disposition tendencies, and as a modifier, it must be carefully watched to avoid contradiction, i.e., compassionate and hard-hearted, unfeeling and soft-hearted. Bravery indicates the courage of the NPC with regard to threat, risk, hazard, etc. Intellect describes to the DM the manner in which the NPC's mental processes function, and it will modify the intelligence rating in 4 out of 8 cases, dreaming to brilliant. The dreaming and ponderous intellects will tend to ratiocinate more slowly. The scheming intellect will at times perform brilliantly, and the brilliant intellect will perform above its stated intelligence rating due to discernment and insight. Energy is basically self-explanatory. The driven individual is certainly neurotic, typically obsessive, and often fanatical. Thrift, like energy, is self-explanatory. The various degrees of savings and spending must be considered with care. Materialism denotes the regard the NPC has for goods and property. Thrift and materialism complement each other. Honesty describes the NPC's basic veracity and tendencies in dealing with others. Piety is the rating of the religious view of the NPC. Saintly would be modified to fit the alignment of the NPC, and the piety trait must fit the character class as well. Morals refer to the sexual tendency of the NPC, although this trait rating can be used with regard to some ethical questions. Interests describe the pastimes, avocations, and hobbies of NPCs. More than one interest is possible for these characters, which are not otherwise obsessive or devoted to some vocation or calling. Collections simply indicate the field of interest of the collector. Other sorts can be added as desired in game use. The collector of swords, for example, will likely be a contact for player characters wishing to dispose of such weapons gained as loot during an adventure. Hey, Ryan, thanks for tuning in. Let's see, you have random NPCs. Each of your friends made one when we made characters and swapped each NPC with each other. Oh, interesting. Finally around for one of these streams. Hey, MTB or MBT, thanks for tuning in. When you DM'd, never use one of them as yourself. You often just create an NPC and then develop them as a one. Yeah, that's what I do. It seems the most organic way of doing it. Non-player character encounter offer reaction adjustments. This is a series of tables, so I'm going to go ahead and showcase them. So we've got sanity and disposition, nature, bravery, materialism, general tendencies, personality, height and weight tables for males, and it has like height in inches and weight in pounds for each race. And then for females, height and weight determination. Here's a bunch of just random variables, and then language determination. The following is used to is to be used primarily to determine knowledge of languages in NPCs and such things as magical swords, as player characters generally should be required to learn foreign languages from others when the opportunity and inclination present themselves. This is subject to alteration, of course, pending conditions in individual campaigns. This brings up a really interesting idea. Magic weapons with egos that can communicate. Are they all speaking human basic language? Of course not. If they were created by elves, for example, they would speak Elvish. If they're created by dwarves, Dwarvish, and so on. So yeah, the whole idea of learning other languages and having language be an integral part of your milieu or campaign, I think is incredibly important and should always be sort of leaned on. When monsters are talking, they're not talking in some secondary language. They're talking in their own language amongst each other. All right, random language determination table. Special roles for the Dungeon Master. As the DM, your game moderator, judge, jury, and supreme deity. You are also actively engaged in active role-playing throughout the course of the campaign from game to game, as you must take the persona of each and every henchman and or hireling involved. See also monsters hereafter. To play such roles to the hilt, it is certainly helpful to the DM if he or she has player characters of his or her own in some other campaign. Henchmen. Regardless of their loyalty, henchmen are individuals. Play them for their liege just as if they were your player characters, modified by whatever circumstances and special characteristics are applicable. Begin creating the persona of such a non-player character as soon as he or she appears on the scene, without recourse to the book characteristics. It will thereafter become easier and more natural for you to reassume the persona as needed. The most important rule to remember is that the henchman is an individual with likes, dislikes, feelings, and so on. The henchman is likely to aspire to great things too, and he or she will tend to look out for personal interests. Bullying, duping, cheating, and similar maltreatment will certainly be resented. The henchman will talk about it with others of his class and fellow henchmen and hirelings. Henchmen will never loan out money or valuables without security, particularly if one instance of failure to repay or loss has occurred previously. Loyalty will certainly drop in this case, and if such action is repeated, loyalty will be lost in most cases. If their liege is so bold as to suggest that the henchman should make loans to other characters, there will be flat refusals in all likelihood. The key here is playing the henchman as if he or she were an actual person. Better still, if the character is somewhat greedy and avaricious. Interest should be paid on loans. Use of a henchman's valuables, such as a magic item, should be used on the holding of some equal or better object of similar nature, certainly one usable by the henchman, and the promise of some payment in addition, such as a minor item of magic. See also acquisition of magic user spells. Some few players will actually play their henchmen as individual characters, not merely as convenient extensions of their main player character. In these rare cases, your involvement with these henchmen will be minimal. It is far more probable that the player will attempt to manipulate their henchmen, and you will counter all such attempts by active assumption of the role or roles. You will keep low intelligence characters behaving accordingly, clever ones possibly tricking their master, and so on. I love this. Every single person I've ever had that's played more than one character plays them to the benefit of their primary character, not in opposition to, which is why I like the idea of a dungeon master sort of stepping in and being like, nope, this is what they say, or this is what they do, not what you just said. Because it's not the player's main character, and they don't control all of the feelings and thoughts of these individuals as much as they want to. We have to remember these are henchmen or hirelings or NPC mercenaries in some cases, not devoted worshippers of the player themselves. Hirelings. As these characters serve strictly as employees, they should be played as such. Mercenaries interested in doing their job and collecting their pay usually indeed will be circumstances which see a hireling volunteering for extra work or service. Rather, a hireling seeking to do only as much as is absolutely minimal to fulfill terms of employment. They're quiet quitting, apparently. If more is desired, more must be offered. Playing such roles is relatively easy, and if groups are involved, concentrate on the persona of the leaders. Otherwise, hirelings can be treated as henchmen as far as involvement is concerned. Monsters. Taking the role of some of the monsters, those who happen to be human or humanoid, is not a difficult task for the DM, but sometimes it is hard to get into the persona of particularly nauseating creatures or minions of purity or whatever. Such creatures might well be beyond the realm of experience of the referee, and understandably so. Nonetheless, such monsters must be carefully played by the DM. Each and every monster must be played as closely to its stated characteristics as is possible. Clever ones should be played with cleverness, stupid ones with stupidity, ferocious ones with ferocity, cowardly ones with cowardice, and so on. In all cases, the DM is absolutely obligated to play the monster in question to the best of his or her ability according to the characteristics of the monster and the circumstances of the encounter. A magic-using creature will intelligently select the best, or what the creature believes will be the best, spell or magic device for attack or defense. Intelligent monsters will make use of magic items in their treasure hoard. Thinking monsters will tend to flee from encounters which are going badly in order to live and fight another day. There's no reason why monsters cannot learn from encounters, employ flaming oil, set up ambushes, and so forth according to their capabilities and resources. I totally agree with this, and I just love this, because usually, I don't know about usually, because I only have my own experience here, but sometimes you can see monsters just like coming in, getting killed, coming in, getting killed. You know what I mean? There should be more to an encounter than just walking up to a swinging sword and then falling under the swinging sword. Other non-player characters: the host of merchants, shopkeepers, guardsmen, soldiers, clerics, magic users, fighters, thieves, assassins, etc. are likewise all yours to play. Again, this is simply a matter of assuming the station and vocation of the NPC and creating characteristics, formally or informally, according to the importance of the non-player character. These NPCs will have some alignment, but even they won't be likely to prevent a bit of greed or avariciousness. Dealing with all such NPCs should be expensive and irritating. Consider the two following examples. The fighter, Selwyn Silvershield, enters a strange town seeking aid from a high-level magic user in order to turn an associate back to flesh after a most unfortunate encounter with a cockatrice. His inquiries at a tavern meet with vague answers until several rounds of drinks have been purchased and the proprietor generously tipped. Wending his way from tavern to Wizard's Tower, Selwyn is accosted by a beggar, and he is pestered unendingly until he either pays off or calls for the watch. Paying off will attract a swarm of other beggars. Calling for the watch can be nearly as dangerous, as they could resent a foreigner's refusal to deem a native beggar worthy of a copper or two. Despite such possible misadventures, the fighter finally comes to the tower of Llewellyn ap Owen, a wizard of high repute. However, Selwyn's knocking is answered by a lesser person, the warlock Tregelish Mool, the wizard's henchman. Mool informs the eager fighter that Lofty Llewellyn is far too busy to see anyone at this time. Good day. Unless Selwyn is quick in offering some inducement, the warlock will slam the tower door and forget about the intrusion. Now, let us assume that Selwyn's bribe was sufficient to convince Tregelish Mool to arrange an appointment with his master, and furthermore, that such an appointment is actually timely. Now, old Apowen is rather testy, for he was in the middle of an experiment which is now absolutely ruined, and must be begun all over again, just because this stupid sword swinger managed to convince Mool the Lackwit that something was more important than a wizard's spell research. Well, this fellow Selwyn had better have a good reason for interruption, and further, the pay had better be good. Selwyn will have to pay through the nose in cash and in magic items to get the magic user to turn stone to flesh once again. But suppose Selwyn has no items in which Llewellyn could use. The wizard will take something he cannot use personally, for he undoubtedly has all sorts of henchmen and hirelings who can employ these things, not to mention the possibility of trading or selling. In no event will money ever serve to replace magic items. Furthermore, if no magic is available, then a geese can be laid to get some. These examples show how varying roles are played without great difficulty simply by calling upon observation of basic human nature and combining it with the particular game's circumstances applicable. Once established, it is quite easy to recall the persona of frequently consulted or encountered NPCs. If such intercourse becomes very frequent, considerable additional development of the character or characters concerned and their surroundings will certainly be in order. Thus, in many ways, the campaign builds and grows of its own volition and within its own parameters. Hiring non-player characters to cast spells or use devices. It is a certainty that your players will seek outside aid many times during the course of your campaign. At times, a particular spell or device able to deliver a magical power will be necessary or very helpful to a party, and so they'll seek out a cleric or magic user to hire for the service. The most common spells sought are various cures and informal spells. The players should know from the outset that there is no free lunch anywhere, and that the performance of any service is going to cost a reasonable sum. A few sample prices for spells are listed below. Note that these charges are based on characters of similar alignment and religion as the cleric requesting the service at the headquarters of the cleric in question. I think this is great. Let's take a look at this really quick. So we've got cleric spell requested. So if you want bless, it's 5 gold per person per level of the spellcaster. Cure light wounds is 100 gold. Cure light wounds. That's great. Detect magic is 150. Assumes device being checked. Oh, yeah. I think these are great. Exercise, find the path. Gate, 50,000. Heal is 200 per point of healing. Oh, my gosh. Prayer, raise the dead, 1,000 plus 500 per level of spellcaster. Oh, that's great. Prices can be adjusted for faithful, lowering level characters. Likewise, they can be upped a bit for those who are not regular attendees of service. If the caster is expected to travel any distance, but not at risk, factors will be as much as doubled. If at any risk, the cleric is likely to refuse or charge 5 or more times the rate shown. Attack spells are not shown in order to discourage hiring of spellcasters for such purposes. As a general rule, no specially hired spellcaster will ever accompany a party on an adventure of any sort, except in circumstances planned and directed by the dungeon master. There's nothing that bothers me more than players trying to lure NPCs into action that is clearly meant for the PCs as heroes of the game. It just drives me insane why you would ever do that. Like, you're the heroes. You're the ones supposed to be taking heroic actions, not the NPCs or normal people. When non-cleric spellcasters are hired, they will likewise consider alignment and personal risk in setting fees. Whether casting spells or using a magical device supplied to them by the party, they will always be a substantial charge. Should any of good, particularly lawful good alignment, complain, note that the worker is worthy of his hire, and similar scriptural quote might be called for in order to silence complaints. If death results due to payment failure, point out that the player has gone to his or her reward. How can that be bad? In the event that the cleric would actually further the cause of the deity and alignment by doing the service, payment can be deferred until the party has the wherewithal to do so. However, this deferral will certainly adjust the fee upwards, or possibly require a normal fee and special service from the party in addition. To forestall the charming of spellcasters in order to get them to perform services of this nature, note that such characters will always be 25% likely to cast a spell as close as possible to the opposite of that he or she is instructed to cast. This is due to the befuddled state of mind and the psychic duress of the charm spell operating on the individual's mind. That's a very clever way of getting around a player's clever approach. It's also worth mentioning that NPC spellcasters are not going to take continual interruptions too kindly, even if the party so doing is of the same faith and alignment and pays well. At some point, the spellcaster will get fed up with it and begin raising rates. The players should not rely upon those outside their group to keep their members viable. They must learn self-reliance or else pay the price one way or another. Monsters and organization. As has been stressed herein, you will find it is necessary to assume the various roles and persona of all creatures not represented by players. This can be particularly difficult in combat situations. You must be able to quickly determine what the monster involved will do in any given situation, and this can be particularly difficult in combat situations. It is necessary that you make a rule to decide what course of action the monsters will follow before the party states what they are going to do. This can be noted in an area, key, or jotted down on paper. Having such notes will save you from later arguments, as it is a simple matter to show disgruntled players those orders when they express dissatisfaction with the results of such an encounter. The intelligence and wisdom of concerned monsters are principal determinants of their actions and or reactions. Consider also cunning and instinct. It is also important to remember that lawful indicates an organized and ordered approach, while chaotic means a tendency towards random individual action and disorganization. But these modifiers must also be judged in light of the monsters concerned, of course. Examples of the response of 6 different types of monsters follow. The situation will be the same in each example. The party, whose composition and levels are unimportant for the example, and would obviously vary in each situation anyway, will be attacking the monsters in the examples in 2 situations. Situation 1, S1, is where encounter occurs for the first time, and while the party inflicts casualties upon the monsters, victory is denied. The party then leaves without its wounded, regroups, and returns 1 full week later to finish the situation. Situation 2, S2, is where the party, rested, healed, and ready for action, has now re-encountered the monsters in question. In both situations, the response of the monsters concerned will be detailed so you can use the examples in handling actual play. Example 1. The party has encountered a crypt under an old temple and attacked skeletons and zombies encountered there. S1. The monsters will respond only as the crypts are entered in turn. Being effectively mindless, they have no coordination in their attacks, and no pursuit will occur when the party breaks off. S2. There will be no change in response on the part of the skeletons and zombies. Those destroyed will not have been replaced, assuming of course that some evil cleric is not nearby, by reinforcements. Doors and furniture previously damaged or destroyed will not have been repaired. Example 2. The party has located and attacked a colony of giant ants. Although giant ants have only animal intelligence, the colony is an organized society where individuals are part of a greater whole. In S1, thus, the response will be ordered. Warrior ants will meet the attackers and workers will remove bodies, items dropped, and any rubble caused by the combat. If the queen is threatened, the workers will also attack. When the party breaks off the action, there is but slight chance of pursuit. S2. In the interim, pupae reaching maturity, perhaps 1 to 6 warriors and 3 to 12 workers, will have replaced casualties incurred during the first encounter. Destroyed tunnels will have been repaired, new tunnels possibly dug, and general activity of the colony carried out normally. Warriors will again meet the party, although they might be reduced in number. When their queen is killed, all organized activity will cease. Example 3. The party has found a cave complex which is the lair of an orc band. S1. The orcs might have a warning device, a drum, horn, gong, bell, etc., available for use by the guards posted at their entrance to the lair. The larger the number of orcs, the greater the chance that such a device will be on hand. As soon as the attack occurs, 1 or 2 orcs will rush to inform the group that they are under attack. Assuming that opportunity allows, response to the attack will be disorganized, wave attacks being likely with the nearest orcs coming first, and the leaders, most likely to be at the rear of the complex, coming up near the last. Some traps might be set along the complex entry. Resistance will stiffen as the leaders and ogres, if any, come up. When the party retires, there is a fair chance of pursuit. a general harassment by the boldest fighters among the orcs. S2. There's not much chance that the chaotic orcs will have sent for reinforcements, although some few losses might have been replaced by returning group members. Any damage or destruction in the cave complex will have been repaired. There's a greater likelihood that more guards will be on duty and some warning device ready to alert the group as discipline will be attempted because of the attack. Response to the attack will be more immediate, and leaders and spellcasters will be ready to fight. If the party camped too near the orcs during the intervening week, there is a chance that the orcs might have located and raided the place. Example 4. The party comes upon a small town and openly assaults the place. S1. Town guards will give warnings immediately, and while there not be an alarm device at each post, there will be a central bell, gong, or whatever alert the entire citizenry of attack. When this sounds, trained militia bands will arm, muster, and move to designated locations to repel the attack. The citizens, regardless of alignment, and this includes characters with adventurer classes, will be likely to join to fight attackers, for the general welfare of the community will come first. When the party breaks off their attack, pursuit is highly possible if the town has sufficient forces available to do so on the spot. S2. The town will have sought whatever reinforcements they could by means of employment of mercenaries, requests to nearby fortresses and towns for men-at-arms, and all able-bodied persons will be formed into militia bodies. Any destruction wrought by the initial assault will have been repaired as time and ability allows. The guards will be doubled and trebled, and local spellcasters will have the most effective and powerful offensive and defensive magics ready. Scouting parties will have been sent out, and the approach of the attacking party will be likely to be known. Pursuit will be very likely if the second attack fails so as to allow it. Example 5. The party encounters a bandit camp and engages in combat. S1. The entire camp will be organized and ready for action on the spur of the moment. As soon as the guard pickets sound the alarm, reaction will be swift. Defensive traps, snares, and pits will make up part of the defensive ring of the camp. Bandits will move to take up assigned posts. Counterattacks will be thrown against the party at appropriate times. When the action is broken off, thieves, assassins, or even monks who might be members of the bandit group will move to track and follow the party to discover what its subsequent actions are and if another attack will ensue. S2. There is a great likelihood that the entire encampment will be gone without a trace of where it went. If the attacking party was obviously of sufficient power to cause serious trouble for it attacked again, if still there, the traps, pits, and snares will have been more carefully hidden and will be more numerous also. Ambushes might be set along the most probable route for approach to the camp for the party's second attack. A few more bandits might have been enlisted or called in from groups out raiding. All guards will have been doubled or trebled, all men more alert than ever, and all possible preparations made. During the interim, an assassination attempt upon one or more of the members of the party might have been made, assuming that the bandits have an assassin character among their number. An attempt to insinuate a spy into the party might have been made, and or a raid upon the party's camp may have been carried out by the bandits. If the party retires, pursuit will certainly take place if bandit strength still allows. Example 6. The party discovers a fortress and attacks. S1. Guards will instantly sound a warning to alert the place. Alarms will be sounded from several places within the fortress. Leaders will move to hold the place or expel invaders with great vigor. Spellcasters will be likely to have specific stations and assigned duties, such as casting fireballs, lightning bolts, flame strikes, cloud kills, dispel magics, and the like spells. Defenders are out to kill, not deal stupidly or gently with attackers, and they will typically ask no quarter nor give any. In like fashion, traps within the fortress will be lethal. As action continues, commanders will assess the party's strengths, weaknesses, defenses, and attack modes and counter appropriately. If the party is within the fortress, possible entry points and escape routes will be sealed off. When the attackers pull back, if it is very likely that they will be counterattacked or at least harassed. Additionally, members of the force of the stronghold will track the party continually, as long as they are within striking distance of the fortress. S2. The fortress will most likely have replaced all losses and have reinforcements in addition. An ambush might be laid for the attackers when they approach. A sally force will be ready to fall upon the attackers, preferably when engaging in front so as to strike the flank or rear. Siege machinery, oil, missiles, etc. will be ready and in good supply. Repairs to defenses will be made as thoroughly as time and materials permit. Weak areas will have been blocked off, isolated, and trapped as well as possible under the circumstances. Leaders will be nearby to take immediate charge. Spellcasters might be disguised as guards or hidden near guard posts in order to surprise attackers. Any retreat by the attackers will be followed up by a hot pursuit. As DM, you must base actions and responses upon what the logical activities possible to the monsters encountered would be when attacked first and then later. You assume the part of these creatures involved and act accordingly. If the attacking party does not have the savoir-faire to assess and properly handle the encounter, and this could well mean leaving as quickly as possible and not returning to get a second bloody nose, then they deserve whatever befalls them. It is absolutely necessary that the Dungeon Master remember that a seriously threatened person will reply with the strongest possible attack or defensive measure in order to assure his or her well-being. This could, of course, indicate a feigned surrender, pretended friendliness, fighting to the death, or dozens of other reactions according to the circumstances and intelligence or wisdom of the individual involved. The best course might actually be running away, something with which intelligent creatures and many not so intelligent animals will be prone to do when there is no other choice save useless death. So, then, does a threatened cleric cast a no alignment spell upon an aggressor or a hold person? Obviously, the latter choice is far more logical in 99% of the cases, and so you should have monsters behave. Skeletons and zombies will mindlessly be slaughtered. Giant ants will march to destruction in behalf of their colony, but more intelligent creatures will react with a greater variety of defenses, counterattacks, and so on in order to assure their safety. Hey, Chris, thanks for tuning in. You found as the DM, if you play creatures optimally, you can absolutely decimate players. You really need to pull your punches sometimes to maintain the fun. Yeah, I kind of disagree with that, actually, MBT. And I think it's because they shouldn't be thrown against monsters that would easily defeat them in the first place. And if they go out of their way to face monsters that could easily defeat them, then that's their fault, and they should suffer the consequences of their actions. If you as a DM, in my opinion, start pulling punches, then the players will never trust the severity of a situation, and they'll always go into situations that they can never actually deal with, knowing that you will soften the blow, so to speak, for them. At least that's my approach and how I've always run it. That does mean that you have TPKs from time to time. But again, hopefully, players are learning from those events. People who are basically playing D&D like Dark Souls might want that sort of thing where monsters be played to the peak of their abilities. That's kind of, I think I've played Dark Souls once or twice, and the whole underlying note is that it's difficult. So that's AD&D to me. It's supposed to be that way. And, everyone, the best games are the games that you like to play in the ways that you like to play them. So I'm not saying the way I do it is better than anyone else's. It's just that's how I do it, is all. Use of non-human troops. Demi-human troops are unlikely to serve a human master who is not otherwise supporting a cause of the particular race. Some small number might serve with the henchmen of their own race, but not large bodies, except for short periods of time, most probably when danger threatens their area. If you might allow exceptions to this as they become compatible with your campaign. Similarly, half-elves might enlist bodies of elves, halflings might enlist dwarves or elves, etc. Lizard men will serve a human master only because of fear or religious awe. Either case requires continual maintenance in order to keep the lizard men serving. Communications will probably be a problem. Lizard men troops will also tend to fall upon dead and wounded of either side and devour them if not strictly officered at all times. Non-human troops, bugbears, and humanoids will be very difficult to handle. They will tend to fight amongst each other, cf. compatible of non-human troops below, fight with humans nearby to whether friendly or not, 25% chance if friendly, run from battle if they see troops on their own side retiring or retreating, and fall to looting at the first opportunity. Communications are also a great problem. If the master is strong and powerful and gives them cause to fear disobedience, it will be of some help in disciplining such troops. Likewise, if there are strong leaders within each body of such troops, threatening and driving them on, they will be more likely to obey. Weakness in leadership or lack of officering will certainly cause these troops to become unruly and impossible to control. Probability of control for each type of troop is shown below. So let's take a look at this real quick. So you can see bugbears, gnolls, goblins, hobgoblins, kobolds, lizardmen, and orcs, and the percentages with and without officers or leaders. Whenever orders are given or combat takes place, find the appropriate column and roll thereon. If the dice score exceeds the percentage shown, the troops disobey in some manner. Refuse to move, attack any disliked creatures nearby, loot, run away, etc. Note that it is not possible to have a weak leader and effective officers. Strong leaders will be tested often. Granting the troops a high rate of pay is generally viewed as weakness in a leader. Compatibility of non-human troops. The general compatibility of demi-human troop types can be determined by consulting the Player's Handbook Racial Preference Table. Lizard men are hated by all demi-humans and humanoids save kobolds, and even the latter are suspicious of them, just as human troops are. Of the various races of humanoids, many will bully or attack one another as indicated on the table below. So let's take a look at this table. We have Humanoid Racial Preference Table, Basic Acceptability of Racial Types, and it shows you the races and the cross-section, and what this means on the table. A P indicates some preference and compatibility or even possible friendliness between them with appropriate cooperation. A G indicates that some goodwill exists, and so no hostility and some cooperation is possible. T indicates the races can tolerate each other and open hostilities are not likely to be evident. N indicates neutral negative feelings on the part of these races and that there will be no move to aid them if any ill befalls. A indicates antipathy and an active dislike which will break into open hostility if the opportunity presents itself. If leaders or overseers are weak, these creatures will desert. And H indicates hatred, possibly kept in check by fear, which will certainly break into open hostilities at the first opportunity, or else the hating humanoids will desert at the first chance if near a strong body of such hated creatures. Use the table whenever humanoid troops are fighting, or even serving side by side within 12 inches of each other without any intervening troops or screen so that the other humanoids are visible. Have the troops behave according to the letter key. I think that's fascinating. And it's something that you usually, again, this is just my experience, I usually don't ever really consider it because I don't have that many mixed monsters working together. But in the War of the Lance, you've got a lot of that. So it is something that we should consider, especially with DragonLance as a background, you know. All right, we are starting a new section, so let me update this. Construction and Siege. Underground construction. As Dungeon Master, you will be interested in the subject of dungeon building for two reasons. Most importantly, is the work which will take place in various underground settings you devise for your players. Work will probably be in progress prior to their venturing into the labyrinth, during the course of their adventures therein, and even after they have moved on to some other project or task. Later, high-level player characters will build their own strongholds, and they will desire some dungeon mazes thereunder. Although the volume of material given herein is by no means that of a text on mining, it should be more than adequate for quick and easy handling of the task in your campaign. Mining. Cubic volume of rock per 8 hours labor per miner. And we'll have to take a look at this. So we got the race of the miner working, the type of rock being mined, and the depth per hour they can reach. Multiple workers. For game purposes, assume that each extra miner will cause an appropriate additional volume of rock to be mined, providing that there is room in the shaft, assuming that a typical shaft will be 10 feet wide and arched to a 16-foot or so peak, including scaffolding where appropriate. The maximum number of miners by race per 10 feet wide shaft is shown below. Increase the number for wider or narrower shafts accordingly, although any miner larger than man-sized needs a 10-foot minimum width in which to work. So races of dwarf, gnome, goblin, halfling, or kobold has a maximum number per 10 feet wide shaft of 16. Humanoid, orc, and hobgoblin, human, and orc is 12. Gnoll is 8. Ogre is 6. Giant any type is 4. Multiple shifts. There's no reason to limit work to 1/3 of the day. If there's need, construction can be carried on 24 hours per day, as long as there are enough fresh workers every 8 hours to do so. No worker may toil more than 8 hours per day. Natural area. Where natural passages and cave cavern space exists, there can be no work, or minor work only to straighten, enlarge, or whatever. Computing the amount of rock necessary to be mined for such passages or spaces is no great matter. The existence of such natural areas is another matter altogether. You can always assume that the basic subterranean races of creatures discover such natural cave areas and select them purposefully. For player characters, you might wish to allow the following chances of finding a natural cave. So limestone is 1 in 10, other sedimentary rocks is 1 in 50, lava is 1 in 20, and other igneous rocks are 1 in 100. The size of such natural areas will typically be small to very large and with many passages in the case of limestone only. Igneous rock areas will be short passages or small caves only. Lava area spaces will tend to be tubes, other fairly large and long. Other sedimentary areas will be smallish and not extensive. General note. As a rule, player characters will not be able to get races of creatures such as kobolds, hobgoblins, orcs, gnolls, ogres, and giants to perform mining labor. These creatures would far rather steal, rob, and kill for their income. Fear of enslavement will sometimes prove successful for a time, but guarding the unwilling miners and the hard task of getting them to work at their optimum rate will be difficult problems for the taskmaster. Miners have tools, which makes quite efficient weapons, so one comparable guard per 4 workers is about the minimum. Slave or unwilling labor is from 50% to 80% as efficient, depending on how many foremen are on hand to watch and drive the laborers. If 1/16 efficiency is If 1 to 16 is the ratio, efficiency is 50%. If it's 1 to 12, it is 60%. 1 to 8 means 70%, and 1 to 4 brings efficiency to 80% normal. Thus, for every 4 unwilling miners, that must be a guard and a supervisor. Of course, if ogres were doing their work, the guard and the taskmaster would have to be equal to ogres in hit dice or power, 4th level fighters, or ogres of comparable, for example. Construction time. Earth excavation. The cost of the ditch, 100 feet in length, 10 feet deep, and 20 feet wide, assumes that a crew of 3 to 4 men worked for 6 weeks. If the soil is heavy clay, time will be doubled. Stone constructions. Fortresses like stone constructions take about 1 week per 10 cubic foot section. Adding 50% to the expenditure will double the rate of the construction, but to triple the rate of construction, expenditure will be increased to 250% of the base cost. The maximum increase in construction rate. Normal stone buildings, as shown on the cost list, require 4 months to construct, including interior work. All times assume building materials are on hand. Quarry work and transportation, if any, are additional cost and time factors. Architect costs are also additional. Wood constructions. Wooden buildings take appropriately 1/2 the time it takes to construct similar buildings with stone. Wooden hoardings, for example, can be built at the rate of a 10-foot section per day. There are so many variable factors involved that the times given for completion of any given construction must be vague. If you do not wish to spend undue amounts of time calculating, it is suggested that you use the following rough estimates for construction time. Moat house Shell Keep Small Castle, 1 year plus 2 to 8 months. Small Castle with outer and inner walls, Medium Castle, 2 years plus 1 to 6 months. Medium Castle with outer and inner walls, Large Castle, 3 years plus 2 to 8 months. Large Concentric Castle, Walling Average Town, 5 years plus 1 to 12 months. Times assume that an architect has prepared plans in advance and that normal costs are expended in construction. If additional monies are spent, time is reduced as noted for stone constructions with respect to walling urban areas. Citizens who willingly labor to spend construction will reduce time by 50%. All right, constructions. Let's take a look at this. So we have different types of additional construction and the cost for it. So arrow slits, battlements using stone or wood, ditches, doors and the construction of the door, drawbridges, gatehouses, portcullis, parapets, towers, tunnels, and walls. Just very expensive. And again, this was part of AD&D for player characters. You'd get to a certain level, you would actually attract henchmen, and then you need to build yourself a keep or some sort of home base. That was part of the game, and it was a part that actually encouraged the generation of the milieu itself. So let's describe each and every one of these as if we didn't already know what they were. Arrow slit. Each arrow slit assumes a space behind it in which the bowman stands 1/2 foot wide, 4 feet long. Arrow slit cross-slit, as the name implies, this is a straight slit with a cross slit for crossbows. Barbican. The barbican is a solid stone outwork with 2 30-foot diameter by 30-foot high round towers and a connecting building 20 feet wide by 30 feet long by 20 feet high. It must be properly pierced and battlemented. The barbican can include a gate or can be a simple outwork. Bartizan. This is a small tower built to provide flanking fire on curtain walls or as additional firing platforms. Batter, plinth, or splay. These terms describe a sloping support which strengthens wall or tower bases, hindering attack by machines or humans. Battlement. These are the parapet or sill, embrasures, and merlins set atop a wall to provide cover for bowmen. If the surface is not broad, a catwalk, QV, must also be constructed. A 14-foot section of battlement will typically have 2 4-foot wide merlins and 2 embrasures 3 feet wide. Building stone. This is a single course 1 foot thick of dressed or field stone with 120 feet of outside walls, 20 feet high with 2 wooden floors, second and attic, 2 flights of stairs, a peaked roof, and 1 wooden door, cellar excavation, ground flooring, windows, interior walls, and additional doors are extra. The cost to increase wall thickness is 10% of initial costs per course of stone, 1 foot thickness. Thus, the building upgraded to 10-foot thick walls and appropriate outer dimensions would cost 500 gold pieces plus 90% or a total of 950 gold pieces. The cost of a stone building can be used for computing interior dungeon walls. Building. Wood. This is the same as stone building above, but walls are framed with planks, total thickness 1/2 feet. Buttress. Stone. This is a wall support generally used for reinforcing the outside surface of a curtain wall, tower, etc. To buttress a wall up to 20 feet height, the equivalent of 3 buttress sections is needed. Catwalk. This is a sturdy platform about 3 feet wide which is built upon a wall or palisade to enable defenders to shoot or fight over the top of the construction. Ditch. This is a trench excavated as an obstacle with sloped, compacted, and sodded sides. If a rampart of earth is built immediately above one side of a ditch, the cost of the rampart is only 20% of the amount shown. The cost of the ditching can be used for computing the cost of excavation for cellars, basements, dungeons, etc. Door, iron. An iron door is typically set into the stone with 3 long hinges supports. It consists of plates about 1 inch thick bolted to a frame about 1/2 that thickness. The cost of larger or smaller or thicker doors is 2 gold piece per square foot of 1/2 inch iron added to or subtracted from the basic door cost. It has an iron bar on one side. Door, secret. This is a stone portal which operates by counterpoise or pivot with a hidden mechanism to trigger operation. There's no reduction for smaller portals, and the cost for larger ones is 5 gold piece per square foot of increased size. Door, trap. This is a stout wooden door about 2 inches thick set into a floor. It is raised by an iron ring which is constructed as part of the trapdoor. Each additional square foot of trapdoor costs 1 silver piece. Door, wooden. This is a sturdy door of hard wood, maple, ash, etc., about 3 inches thick. A square foot of additional wood, or for less wood, in the door is 2 silver pieces. The door is barred on one side by a 2x4. Door, wooden, reinforced. This is a stout oaken door, 4 inches thick, bound with iron bands and secured by a 3x6 oaken bar. Each square foot of alteration is valued at 5 silver pieces. Drawbridge. This is a bridge of 6-inch thick hardwood planks bound with iron and attached to great chains which pass through the wall of the stronghold. These chains are used to raise the drawbridge by means of a winch and capstan bars and held fast by pawl and ratchet. Each 1 square foot alteration is valued at 2 gold pieces. Embrasure shutters. These wooden pieces mask an embrasure. These are constructed in 2 sections, independent of each other, which rest firmly against the merlons on either side, but swing out from the bottom to allow archery. Gatehouse, stone. A gatehouse is a building of stone with walls 5 foot thick, 2 reinforced doors guarding a portal 10 feet wide by 12 feet high, a portcullis, and machicolated battlements atop the structure. It is 30 feet high to the battlement. The battlement is 7 feet high. The gatehouse is 140 feet of outer walls. 2 barbette covers its gate side. Hoardings, wooden. This is a very stout wooden catwalk projecting in front of a wall. It has embrasures, a peaked roof connecting to the battlement, and holes in the flooring to enable defenders to hurl and discharge missiles at the attackers at the wall foot. Machicolation stone. It is a stone projection which moves the battlement out over the outer face of the wall. It has spaces in the stone floor which allow missiles to be discharged to the space at the wall foot. Merlon, a stone section rising above the parapet to provide cover for defenders atop a wall or tower, is a merlon. The merlon can be pierced with a slit for additional missile power. Moat. A water-filled ditch, properly packed and graveled in most cases, comprises a moat. Murder hole. This is a slit, cross-leaded slit, or similar opening in a floor to command a passageway below. In combination with inner portcullis, inner wall slits, and pits, they make an entrance passage into a gatehouse or similar structure very unhealthy for attackers. Palisade. A wooden fence of logs about 6 inches thick, sunk into the ground from 4 feet to 6 feet, forms a palisade. A palisade is usually built atop a rampart and equipped with a catwalk in order to turn the upper portion into a parapet. Parapet, stone. This is a low stone wall, 3 feet high and 3 feet thick or deep, to provide cover for defenders. It is crenellated by placement of merlons. Pilaster. This is a pillar-like reinforcement, about as thick as its base as it is its top. Pit. A pit is a hole covered by a wooden or metal lid. The lid is removed when the attackers threaten the work in which it is in. A pit is typically walled and floored with finished stone. Portcullis. This is a grill of reinforced wooden or iron bars which is raised and lowered by counterweights and winch. For each square foot of alteration, adjust the cost by 2 gold pieces. Rampart, earth. A rampart is a layered, packed and sodden earthen wall, usually topped by a palisade. See also ditch. Stairs, stone. Solid stone for the first 10-foot rise. The stone staircase must be buttressed if it rises beyond 10 feet. Staircase, wooden. Typically, stairs are built of sturdy hardwood. Tower, round, a stone cylinder without doors, arrow slits, or battlements. A round tower has 1 stone floor, a flat stone roof, and spiral stone stairs to the roof. The walls of 20-foot diameter towers are 5 feet thick. Those of a 30-foot diameter tower are 6 feet, and those of a 40-foot diameter tower are 7 feet thick. Tower square, see tower round above. A 10-foot square tower has walls 3 feet thick. Tunnel, underground. A straight shaft generally used as an escape route. The underground tunnel is assumed to be dug through soft earth and floored, walled, and roofed in rough stone. If it is dug through hard earth, the cost will be increased by 100%. If the tunnel is mined through solid rock, the cost will be 500% of the figure shown. Wall, bastion. This is a curved wall section, typically hemispherical, built into a curtain wall to provide flanking fire. It has no battlement. Wall curtain. This is a straight wall section without battlements. If it is built above 20 feet height, it must be thickened or supported by buttresses, pilasters, etc. Window, shuttered. A typical opening in a wall, it is covered by wooden shutters of 1 inch thickness. Window, shuttered and barred. This is a typical window protected by a single bar with spurs to either side to prevent entrance through its aperture. Bars on wider windows can be multiples of type above or crossbar grilled. All right, that's where I'm going to stop today's reading. What did you guys think about this? So let's see. The idea your player character is eventually controlling an entire army sounds amazing, really fun. Well, and then it gets into the whole mass combat, which, of course, in AD&D is battle system, and that could be a lot of fun. You did play in a campaign where you got to use a catapult once. That was fun, causing that much damage at one time. Yeah, I ran Shadow of the Dragon Queen, which had a catapult. It was turned into a gnome flinger type device, and no one cared about it. Like, even when they were sort of under attack, no one even thought to use it at all. They just sort of abandoned it, which was interesting. I like the idea of mass combat and war, as long as the rules to it are logical and not over cumbersome. You don't want like a battle taking 4 hours in real time, which battle system actually did take that long. So anytime and I think battle system 2nd edition went to ease the battle length a little bit, certainly with the preparation as well, and managing of troops and such. It made it a lot easier. But yeah, I mean, even Saga system had mass combat rules. One of the wonderful viewers of the channel noted that in OD&D, they even had a mass combat system that I was not aware of, which I find very fascinating. 3rd edition, I don't know that there was one official that was released. I never really looked into it or thought about it. 4th edition, I do not think there was. At least I never ran across it, and I've never seen it in 5th edition. So there might be one, and it might actually be in the Dungeon Master's Guide on how to deal with. I know in the 2024, the newest edition, they do address mass combat briefly, and it's just a simplified way of handling it. But at least they address it in the 2025 or 4 edition. I don't think in the original 5th edition they addressed it at all. But again, I'm just running off of base memory here. So in any case, that's it for this episode of Gaming Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Do you randomly generate your NPCs, or do you just make them up on the fly? Have you ever hired NPCs in your home games? And finally, what do you use for mass combat in AD&D? Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. This all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. Thank you, creator patron Aaron Hardy and developer patron Chris Androu. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, and I hope you'll join me in the celebration. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slàinte mhath.